Okay, would we like to do a sound check? If you're talking, I cannot hear you. Oh, there we go. I can hear you.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Morning.
Morning, Sandy.
Morning, Sandy. Good morning.
Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, everyone. Kind of chilly this morning. Not used to this cold stuff.
I love it, but I also really like fall. But
Sound like my wife.
I like
she's
fall too,
correct.
Sandy.
Yes, that's what sweaters are for.
Yep.
I went to the farmer's market yesterday to find some mums, and I found this huge mum. So it's made its home on my porch, and it looks really nice. So now I want to get another one naturally.
unmute.
Morning, Bob.
Morning. My hair doesn't look so pretty, but it's the best I got.
Morning, Bob.
Morning. Bernie will not be with us today.
That is correct.
Correct. Gotcha.
I have a new prescription, and I have 2 pairs of new glasses coming, and they cannot come soon enough. These ones are a little off. Where do you get your, Shopko optical in Clover? So,
Shopko and Clover,
and it's just the optical. It's
Oh,
only,
that's what they got that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, so that's the only part of Shopko that survived, was the optical.
I remember now, never seen it, just across the road from the one. in
So sad, Printville sits there, big, there was one probably besides Fleet, that was a big store there, and there was nothing.
Yeah, there's a number of Shopko and Shopko hometown stores. You know, to go home to my parents' place, I go across on 29 over the western side of the state. And so, yeah, Stanley, and there's one in Abbotsford, and you know, they kept some people from having to take some long trips to just get some, you know, odds and ends. So
It's pretty reasonable.
not bad.
A little higher than Fleet on some.
Yeah, it makes things darker.
But not
And as far as it's like, I have been going to Walmart, but Walmart's a pain in the butt to try and get in right now. You just have to get there at the right time, and they have enough staff that they'll let you go in and try glasses. So a little more than Walmart, but a lot less than if you were to go to the, you know, eye clinic of Wisconsin or one of the doctors. You know. So.
And downtown Waupaca feels really bad with Kmart on one side completely abandoned, they probably cut down 1,000 trees to make the parking lot for what turned out to be the Kmart. And now it's just a big abandoned building with a Piggly Wiggly on one end. Pretty sad.
Yep.
And across the street, hometown Shopko is gone. Looks very desolate. And in the town of King, right next to the Veterans Home, the Farmer State Bank closed the branch there. And within days, the business across the street got abandoned. The home across the parking lot from the bank got abandoned. And so they're like these 2 little places in my life that I drive by every day that are just desolate. Very sad.
Could be worse.
Could be. We will get creative or somebody, and we'll fill the buildings up with something.
Yeah, eventually. It's going to take somebody with money. I mean, the bank sold the branch building to another bank or someone, but that someone hasn't been there for 9 months. It continues to stay abandoned. Got to grab a pencil and I'm ready to go.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Oops. Stop
I
the
have
wrong
the,
thing.
I have the feeling we're all here.
Everyone
More or
who's
less.
supposed to be,
I'm sorry, what?
everyone who is supposed to be.
Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order and get us going here. This meeting and all other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin statutes so that the citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Only in-person public comment will be allowed. Calling this meeting to order, we need to have a roll call. That shows that Bernie's not here. Everyone else who is supposed to be here is here. Review of the agenda. I've reviewed it. I think it looks fine. Are there any corrections?
I'll make that a motion.
Okay, there's been a motion made, and I will second it to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, review the previous minutes, which I read this morning. Any corrections to those? Sandy, you're yawning. I saw you yawn.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem. Okay, if I would move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. You need a second.
I'll second it.
There's a second. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Moving on. Correspondence.
I do not have a record of any.
I guess that's a good thing. Outreach, education, and program reminders and announcements from staff.
All right, I know that Haley is on deck for our featured topic today, but were there any other, between Sandy, Penny, Christy, Jessica, any other items that you would like to just take a moment and highlight that was either included in your report or something that outside of that?
I would just like to share quick that next week is National 4-H Week. And so this past week, I did get press releases and photos out to the local newspapers to highlight. And October 10th is our annual 4-H pumpkin contest. That is it's always been a National 4-H Week event that we do as a 4-H program. And also next week, I will be putting up a display at Tractor Supply Company. They do, there is a store in New London now, if anybody wasn't aware of that. And they do, they support the 4-H program nationally by doing a clover campaign where people can purchase a clover for $1, kind of like you see places to support different efforts. And last year we did an in-person event, and they would just like displays this year. And so we're working with Tractor Supply to just do a standing display that will be there October 7th to the 18th. And then statewide, there was a list started of trying to do spirit days around National 4-H Week. And so we're working on that, but trying to just share information about 4-H for National 4-H Week next week.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
I just had something really quick to point out from my report. It's just like a little one-liner in there, but I think it'll have potentially can have some pretty big impacts on our county and across the state. I've been helping the governor's task force on broadband access to help them kind of work through coming up with some solutions for rural broadband access in particular, but really broadband access across the state. And this is really interesting because it is connected to our region, because there's been some other meetings that have started called the Blue Ribbon Commission on Rural Issues. And in the New North, which covers our area, has been involved in that. And so we're coordinating, the governor's task force is coordinating with this Blue Ribbon Commission, who has had some heavy representation from our region. So it's been, I think it'll be really interesting. The cool thing is that it's not taking much of my time. I'm really just the facilitator, but it's been, this task force is going to be is going to be giving the governor's office some policy recommendations that will help, hopefully will help improve broadband across the state. So more to come on that. I'll put it in my reports whenever I do something for them so that you can see the progress.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? I think we're down to Haley.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. I just want to start by saying that I have a little one home with me today. And if I were to get interrupted, I truly apologize, but he's pretty busy right now. So just throwing that out there. So my name is Haley, and as most of you I think are familiar, I have not met some of you in person yet. Looking forward to that day to come, hopefully in the near future. I am a food-wise nutrition educator, mainly housed in Waupaca County. I do branch out to Calumet, Outagamie, and Winnebago counties with my fellow colleagues if needed at any point to collaborate for lessons. But today I want to give a presentation on a lesson series that Christy and myself did back in January and February of this year, a little bit before quarantine started. We have not been doing very much programming at all throughout this time of quarantine, unfortunately, but we are very hopeful, and we are reaching out to partners, and specifically school partners, to continue partnering with them and be on a virtual platform in the future here, and hopefully get back in person when the time allows. But today, like I said, I'm going to present on a class that we did in January and February, and I'm excited to share that with you because it was a very, very great, successful lesson series. So I will pull up a presentation that I have for you here. Okay, can everyone see this? It says Clintonville Head Start.
Yep.
Yes.
Looks good.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so my presentation today is on a lesson series that we did at Clintonville Head Start, one of our partners we have worked with for quite a while. And this specifically was with a curriculum called Cooking Matters and exploring food together. So again, it was in January and February. And here we go. Let's see. I think I should be, oh, perfect. All right. So a little background on this Cooking Matters curriculum. Our county, or the Cow counties, were selected as a part of a pilot grant that Cooking Matters was putting on. And we were given the opportunity to run with this grant. And us as a team decided that this is something that we were really interested in doing. So a little bit of overview on the grant. This was an opportunity presented to partners who are interested in increasing access to nutrition and food skills education for low-income parents and caregivers of kids from pregnancy through 5. This was an in-person programming that was intended to be shorter, more flexible, and family-friendly than the existing models that already are in place. And our timeline for this grant was July 1st of 2019 through May 30th of 2020. So the food-wise goals that we had going into this, being a part of this pilot grant, we had set some goals. And this was as the entire state. These were our goals in food-wise. So it was to reach 200 low-income participants with this programming across Wisconsin. 90% of those participants were going to be caregivers or parents of young children. And throughout this series, educators were to distribute take-home groceries to participants that support the preparation of healthy meals in the home. And this was a series of 4 to 6 lessons that must include meal ideas for kids, money-saving tips, and tips on how to save time. They were to be either 30 or 60-minute lessons. And these lesson plans were provided to us with an outline that we could tweak and make our own, in a sense. But the 30-minute lessons needed to include a food tasting or a food demo, and the 60-minute lessons needed to include hands-on cooking. The ideal number for participants was between 8 and 12. So that's just an overview of the pilot grant that we were presented and how we had a base on if we were interested in doing this or not. And so then with the grant, the funding was to be used for the following costs: food preparation for the recipes during the lessons. And most of our lessons in food-wise, especially in the schools, we are instructed to just give a sample. And they are able to say yes, please, or no, thank you to the sample. But at the time, we are only allowed to give a sample of the item that we are demoing or cooking. But for this particular grant, it was really awesome because the funds allowed for a full portion to be served to every individual, every participant in the class. So that was really neat because it was something different for us. So we were looking forward to that. The funding also included disposable supplies, plates and silverware, the printing of facilitator and participant guides. At the end of each lesson, participants would receive groceries to prepare the recipe that we taught in class to take home. And that was something completely different to us as well. We never used to be able to, or for any other curriculum or lessons, we never sent anything home with anybody. So that was something very intriguing to us. And then after attending the series successfully, participants were receiving a $10 gas card for their time and their transportation to this class. So that was also a very cool incentive that we were able to offer to the participants. So what was this going to look like for us? Our county tasks. Participants in the, start over. When we participated or chose to participate in this, the credentials that we had to have were 2 trainings. It was a webinar that we had to review the entire pilot and the materials that was given to us by a Cooking Matters staff. And we also had to complete the online Cooking Matters course training. And that's something that Christy and myself both had done previous because we had worked with Cooking Matters curriculum in the past. We do grocery store tours with the Cooking Matters curriculum. And so that is something that we have had training on and we're familiar with. But the webinar for this pilot was specific to what we were doing for this lesson series. We needed to be up to date with food-wise specific implementations of handling food and cooking and demoing with that type of thing, which we were both up to speed with. We needed to identify a partner that we thought would be a great fit. We needed to schedule the sessions, recruit participants, grocery shop for the lessons and take home groceries before each lesson. We needed to run the lessons. We needed to give and administer the participant evaluations and report data to Cooking Matters post lessons. We needed to report this in our normal food-wise documentation and be a part of check-in calls with the group that was a part of this pilot curriculum altogether. We would have check-in calls a certain amount of time per the year that we were going through this. We also needed to complete the Cooking Matters post-session survey for our purpose and how it was going. So that was a very brief overview of the entire grant pilot. And with our tasks, this is what we came up with. This was a flyer that we had put together once we had connected with a partner, which was the Clintonville Head Start. We found that this was going to be an excellent partner to work with throughout this lesson series, because if you remember correctly, it was parents or caregivers of children from birth to 5. And Head Start is perfect for that because they encompass that group of children. And they work very closely with the parents and caregivers of those children. So this is the flyer that we put together. We were going to host right at their site in Clintonville. And they also were an excellent partner to work with because they offered to have, the ideal situation was to have the children there for the class. And our partner offered to provide childcare for the beginning portion of the lessons that we were providing to the parents. So that was awesome. The children broke away for a little while we had discussions with the parents and caregivers. We had 3 dates set up. Ideally, we were looking for 4 to 6 lessons, but with our partner, we were flexible and 3 was what they wanted to do. So we ran with that and we were flexible with that. These ran from January to February, like I said. And at the bottom, as you can see, it says the participants would receive groceries for each week's recipe. We had given away some cutting boards, reusable grocery bags. And then, as it said, if you attended all the classes, you were given a gas card. And then, of course, the food during the class. So the first lesson that we put together, and like I had mentioned before, we were given lesson plans and we were given topics that were a part of the Cooking Matters curriculum that we were to follow. But as educators, what's fun about our job is that we get to make these lessons our own. So Christy and I spent a well amount of time on putting these lessons together and being very intentional and figuring out what we wanted to say and do and the different recipes that we wanted to use during this time. And we were given a list of recipes, but it was fun because we got to pick and choose what we were thinking would work best to match each lesson. So the first lesson was called Hack Your Snack. It was about quick, easy, and healthy meals. So over on the side there, I have what Cooking Matters wanted us to touch on and what the key takeaways of each lesson were going to be. So for this one, it was when you can, you make your own snacks in place of packaged snacks. This helps kids get healthy food they need without unhealthy fats, sugars, and salt that slow them down. When you do buy packaged snacks and other foods, read the labels to help make sure you're making smarter choices. Use unit pricing to help you find better deals and bring home more fruits and vegetables to use in snacks. And the most important thing you can do is encourage healthy snacking, is to model it yourself by snacking healthy yourself. So like I said, these were the key takeaways by the end of the lesson that we should have touched on throughout. So in order to do this, this particular lesson, like I mentioned, the Head Start staff broke the kids off from the adults, and they went off and they made a healthy trail mix. And this was really fun for the kids because this is things that you could find in your pantry. We chose 2 different types of cereals, raisins, pretzels, and banana chips to be a part of their trail mix. And they went off and they made that together. And that was a really fun thing for them to do. But during the time that the children were away, we had certain questions that we were asking the parents and caregivers. And the intention of these lessons was really to make it comfortable, discussion-based, learn from each other. And the different handouts that we had were helpful that they could take home with them to help remind them and remember what we all had discussed during these classes. So we started off with an icebreaker. We got them all comfortable in this space. Christy and I had fun talking about our own children and mentioning things that work for us and things that we know it's easy as parents to fall back on certain things and that we're all human. So we never go into a lesson trying to present that we are better or we know everything. We are very open about our own lives and how we try to make things work for us and making smarter choices for our children as well. So for this series, or for this lesson in particular, the certain questions that we asked were, how often do your kids snack? That really got a lot of vocalization throughout the room. It was like, oh, all the time. They're constantly looking for snacks. Oh, I can't keep enough snacks in the house. Certain things like that. And then once that discussion got going, it was the next question was, what makes a healthy snack? What does that look like for you and your family? And then what else? Also, what makes it hard to eat healthy snacks? And we find a lot of times, snacks are easy to grab prepackaged. So again, going back to the key components of what we wanted to get out of this lesson was to be intentional and kind of plan ahead or buy a big bag of carrots and section them out in little packages or little fun bags or something, or containers for your kids, and kind of just have it be grab and go. Excuse me, my son is.
Can you come outside?
Not right now.
I don't ride my bike.
You can go ride your bike.
I can't get up there by myself. My new bike.
Haley, if you want me to take over or share anything, I can if you need to do anything.
Okay, I just need to run and get him in a different room super quick.
Yep.
So thank you so much.
Just mute yourself. I can take over. Maybe just flip to the next page and I can chat about the next lesson.
Okay.
Can I ride on my bike?
That's the most adorable interruption I've ever heard.
Bike.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, no worries, Haley. So as Haley was saying, the second lesson that we did then was no mealtime madness. We're talking about well-stocked cupboards, and the picture that she has there is the layout of the food that we had that day. On the previous picture, lesson 1, we made homemade pizzas with the families. And the biggest piece that we've taken into consideration when deciding what meals to make is we want to use ingredients that can go from 1 week to the next or one meal to the next. So we used tortilla. They're called flat out. So it's a little bit bigger, heartier than a tortilla shell. It's like a wrap, whole grain wrap that we used for the pizza the first week. And then in week 2, we used, we purchased new, but we used those same wraps to make a vegetable wrap to show the families multiple uses of these foods that they were getting, because on week 1, they received the wraps to make the pizza, the pizza ingredients they received to go home for their take-home groceries. So on week 2, we highlighted a vegetable wrap and used those same tortilla shells, and then the families got to go home with a vegetable dip and some vegetables, a package of shredded cheese, and some cutting boards as well to bring home and keep with their families. Lesson 2, there was the incentive, or the idea was to really put menu planning in place and be thoughtful about what foods were in their pantry so that the foods that they purchased made meals. So you didn't go and spend $100 at the grocery store and then come home and feel like you still had nothing in your pantry. So that, like I said, that tortilla shell, there were multiple uses that they could implement with that. I just mentioned kind of what the recipe was, what we did, the recipe was in week 1, and the idea of menu planning so that things in our pantry are can be used more than once.
Thank you so much for taking over.
No problem.
My son's birthday was on Saturday and he received a new bike. So he is over the moon about the bike. Anyway. Okay. So did you cover the key ideas or the takeaways for this lesson?
I was
I'm
just
sure
getting
people
to
can
that.
read them as well.
Yep, I covered the majority of it.
Okay, great. So for this lesson, the children broke away and made a fruit smoothie. And then certain questions we asked during this lesson were, like what foods do you keep on hand? What are staple items in your pantry that you typically always have? How can that save you time? How can that save you money? And again, this was very discussion based. This was a really, really excellent series. Christy and I learned things from the individuals during the discussion as well. So that was awesome. We had certain things that we took away from their helpful tips and we were learning from each other. So this really touched on menu planning and the benefits. We also talked about the challenges and then how we can involve the entire family into menu planning so that it's successful each night that you're making a meal, that all of a sudden one of your children is like, oh, I don't like that. And you didn't really think about that because they weren't involved on the planning. And then you get caught up in, oh, shucks, now what do I make them? So the intention is that everyone eats the same thing together, save you time, and really touch on the benefits of thinking ahead of time and having things in your pantry that you can just be able to whip up in a short amount of time. So that was our spread, the picture there. That was our spread for veggie wraps. This was fun because we put all of the individuals got to pick out what ingredients they wanted in their veggie wrap. And then we tossed them in a Ninja blender and the little kids got to pulse on the blender. And those mixed veggies then were spread in a wrap with some cheese and some Greek yogurt dip. And those were pretty delicious. And then they also get to take home all of that to then make those in their own home. All right. Okay. And then lesson 3 was your family, your choice, making recipes work for you. So this one really semi-tied into the previous lesson. So that was nice because it was rolling and keeping that conversation going from the previous lesson. So here, the takeaways were to be that you make small changes to a recipe to make it more better for your family and your budget. If a recipe calls for a food, it's too pricey, it's too hard to find, you simply don't care for it, just sub in another thing that you do care for or that you find cheaper or something along those lines. It's okay to start with just a concrete idea instead of an exact recipe. Don't worry, just keep practicing. As you develop cooking confidence, you'll get better at making simple recipe adjustments. So trial and error, essentially. And try simple meals that allow kids and other picky eaters to choose their own toppings and ingredients. So for example, like those veggie wraps I was talking about before, the individual got to pick out what they liked and what they didn't like. So they got to choose on their own so that they can't come back and say, oh, I don't like that, because they got to choose it on their own. So during this lesson, the children broke away and they made peanut butter banana packets. So we had some of the tortillas, the whole wheat tortillas left, and we put sunflower butter on the tortilla, sliced up some bananas, and that was their snack for that time that they were away from their parent and caregiver. They really liked those. Those were fun. And then, sorry, I have some notes here, so pull them in front of me instead of looking over. During this time, we asked and kept that discussion going, like I said. We were talking about if you saw a recipe, and how many of us have done this. We're looking for a certain recipe, and you get to the ingredients list and you're like, whoa, there's tons of things, and I don't even have half of those things, nor do I even know what they are. So you just totally skipped it, and you're like, okay, let's think of something else, and you kind of fall back on something that you would have normally made in your house instead. You skipped it because it was too long, you didn't have something. We were asking like what made them disregard it entirely. And we got that conversation rolling. And that was really interesting because it sounded like quite a few of them had already been practicing. Excuse me.
One thing that I will say about this lesson is that Haley mentioned this earlier, but it was fantastic to hear the families share ideas that they have and things that they do at home. And Haley and I just got to step back and really listen, and the participants became the facilitators. And when we get parents learning from other parents, it's a really unique opportunity to watch, and they become more confident in their abilities too, and realize that they are the experts and that they don't need to necessarily fall back on Haley or I sometimes, that they, that they are doing a fantastic job, and that parenting can be hard. Feeding your kids is a really stressful topic sometimes, and the fact that they can just kind of share their ideas and feel like they're doing something really good for their kids. That's a really fun part of these lessons.
I would 100% agree with that. Thank you, Christy. So here we made a big old salad, and we ended up making our own dressing, which was fun. And we sent them home with all the ingredients for a salad and that homemade dressing they got to take home as well. Sorry, with my interruption, I'm trying to get my train of thought back here. I think what Christy said really just kind of nailed it. Like, these lessons were very awesome in the sense that, reiterating, we all learned from each other. And that was just really awesome to see the different, they were particularly moms. There was one grandma in the room, and they were all learning different tips from each other. They were taking lots of notes, which was awesome. Every time they did participate and in the open discussion, we had a deck of cards, and we gave them a card for each thing that they contributed to the group. And at the end, we drew for a prize. And those prizes were different things that they could use in their kitchen. We handed out calendars that had recipes within them. And so that was another fun thing to just, we learned that a lot of our lessons are very successful with incentives. So this was awesome to have the Cooking Matters grant that we were able to give away quite a lot of incentives. And that was just absolutely excellent. And the feedback that we got from the individuals on that was incredible as well. We had some leftovers at the end of our, hang on 1 second, okay? 1 second.
I can wrap up for you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else on a next slide? Is this the last one?
Just some pictures of the
Photos?
kids
Okay.
who participated in the lesson series. They were just adorable.
I don't
this is a great place to leave to end the conversation, just showing that even something like a salad and even small children under a year or right around a year can participate in cooking at home at different levels. And sometimes the parents were surprised by that. The little girl on the far right, she's holding the homemade dressing that we made. And so we put all the ingredients in there and she got to shake it up and was so proud of that. They got to take that home. The little guy to her left is eating, this was the salad day and he ate all the toppings of the salad. So we think that there are certain foods that, kids eat, and that's chicken tenders and hot dogs and, grilled cheese. But we can definitely have our kids eating these healthy options like salads too. He just ate the toppings and he devoured them. So just a really fun opportunity. The little girl on the far left, she's peeling a carrot, and she was definitely under 5. But with mom's help right there, she was able to peel a carrot. So just age appropriate tasks in the kitchen that were really, really nice. To highlight for these families that they can incorporate their kids in the kitchen too, and that it increases the likelihood that they're gonna want to choose those healthy foods when they're in part of the cooking as well.
This is also very neat to see because some of the parents were aware that their children liked these items, and others were, we encourage them not to say, I don't think that she'll like that in front of them, because that gives the child that idea that, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like it, so I'm not gonna try it. And when the children did end up trying it, some of the parents were shocked that they were eating these things and that they could take that home and be like, oh my gosh, you ate a pepper at that really fun class. So mama's gonna buy peppers now and we'll have those for a snack or for dinner, etc. So these pictures just make me smile. It was so fun. This little guy here was like, he just turned 1. He was eating peppers and black beans and cucumbers. So that is the last slide I had. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And like I had mentioned, we were very fortunate to be a part of this grant opportunity. We really, really enjoyed this. And during this pilot, the feedback that we gave, hopefully we'll keep this curriculum and series around for us to use in the future. Excited to see how that goes. And I also am very excited to get back into the teaching platform, whether that be virtual right now. And like I said, hopefully in person sooner versus later, but we will run with what we have for now and make the best of it. And I'm excited to continue the conversations with the teachers that I'm in contact currently, and looking forward to being able to present on how virtual lessons went. So thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Haley. I think we're down to Chris.
All right, a couple of updates from my perspective, and one of the things that I want to just share, and you can see Haley did a great job. Sometimes there are, like right now, especially with our telecommuting, there are some just unexpected other things, and we're trying to do our full-time professional jobs. And so sometimes there's a delicate balance. So it's just part of where we're at right now. And there's a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness that we have working with each other. So again, that does lead in a couple of things. I'll talk about some updates or some changes to our program approval. But first I want to go in order, because if I don't go in order of the agenda, I'll forget something. So first of all, at the last County Board of Supervisors meeting, Finance Director Heidi Dabrowski gave you the proposed budget for 2021. So as part of that process, bullet item A, or letter A, is there to provide an opportunity for any of the supervisors. If I know I introduced to this group kind of a preview of the budget, and then it was included, and it should have been the exact same numbers that you should have saw in the full proposed budget. And just want to invite an opportunity if anybody has any questions or comments about the 2021 proposed budget. This is a space for that to occur. So as we go, one, if anybody at any time has any questions, or any of your county board supervisor colleagues are like, hey, what's up with the extension budget? I am very happy. It's my role to answer questions or comments and listen as far as that is concerned. So if you have some questions or some concerns that come up, let me know, and we'll talk through them. We'll listen. We'll see what we can do. Somewhat related, if you notice at the back, I wanted to take a little bit of time, especially with Ken and Dennis being new with our contracted services, with the contracted services agreement. I just wanted to share the draft in the packet is the contract between Waupaca County and UW. So a couple of things, the first couple paragraphs are kind of all of the blah, blah, blah legalese kind of stuff at the beginning. But really this is a partnership agreement between the two organizations, and a couple of things I just wanted to highlight. So this, and this is an introduction. So this is an introduction to allow opportunity for me to introduce this document to the committee. It would, what would go is that the budget would go one step further in October and for further review. And then if the recommendation to enter into the agreement would be in October, or if the committee felt that they weren't quite ready yet, we would wait and we would probably have a special meeting, or we would have our November meeting after the passage of the county budget, because there are financial terms that are listed here. So, or the recommendation can be to, and this has been done before, where you can recommend that the county enter into this agreement after the successful passage of the 2021 budget, which then it would go for a review to Corporation Council, and then Chair Kaplan would be the one who would sign. But this group gives a thumbs up that this would be an agreement that the county should enter into. So a couple of the things the agreement runs, it's a calendar year agreement, because that also matches the county budget year. And there are some opportunities for changes and modifications throughout, but it's written in there that it's about 60 days that we would work on good faith. Section 2, or number 2, looks at the responsibilities. So the staff that are listed in the table of under 2A, hire local extension staff, and then looking at those that are listed on the table located in 3A, those staff would be extension staff, and ultimately it would be my responsibility to hire them on behalf of the Division of Extension, but I also will seek input from the county largely through this committee. So that would be, hey, what are the needs? What are the wants? Those types of things. So input can come in a wide variety. I'm listening to the input, and I'm trying to be the spokesperson, because I recognize that there is a vacancy that we currently have that is not currently being filled, only because there's a hiring freeze, and/or we're looking at, there's also a staffing plan to be able to provide the best outreach education services in the area of agriculture to Waupaca County. So trying to work through that. The county responsibilities would be, one, largely is to look at in the table, and if you'll notice, the final total amount should match the contracted services amount in the county budget that's listed in the 2021 budget. So the top 2 positions, those are shared positions. That's the human development and relationships educator, that would be Sandy, Sandy's role, and then community extension educator is Jessica's role. And so that's a shared position. So there's a portion of that, the $42,330 that the county pays, and then there are funds on the state side that are matched that go with that for that position. In addition, there's a first educator discount. So that is by having a full-time or the equivalent of at least one full-time extension educator. There's a discount in there that is we're at least going to be able to work with that for the next 3 years. So the 2021, 22, and 23 budgets are intended to have those to have that discount. In addition, there is $500 per educator that is held in a state professional development account that each of our educators have access to. So that is that's also part of the contract. And then the 4-H program educator, which would be Penny's role, is at this time is fully funded by the county. So the county pays for the full salary and fringes for that position. You can see that number there. In addition, because the ag role is vacant at this time, but we still, at least in Waupaca County, have every intention of filling either filling the role or providing outreach education services in the area of agriculture in some way, shape, or form as part of the state plan. Because it's not an actual position yet, or a role, we put it at the bottom half because that's kind of where that to hold it until after the hiring freeze and the Ag Institute staffing plan is released, to see how we can invest those monies into those outreach education services in what that might in what that looks like for that total amount. In addition, letter B demonstrates and provides travel, appropriate job expenses, office facilities, and office equipment supplies. One of the things is I had a conversation with Finance Director Dombrowski, and there was a question that came up at the Public Property Committee in their August meeting about why some other extension offices are housed outside of the courthouse. So could our extension cert offices be housed outside of the courthouse? And so there's a couple of things that we work together to define and to respond. And Heidi responded on my behalf, or a coordinated effort to that group. One, this agreement says that Waupaca County will provide office facilities, and since there are no other office facilities that they can provide, these are the ones that they provide. The other thing is if you look around the surrounding area, so for example, Outagamie and Winnebago counties, their extension offices are outside of a courthouse or administrative building, but they're also in county-owned buildings or county-operated buildings. The same would be for Portage County. Portage County is in the annex. They're not in the courthouse, so to speak, but they are in a county-owned building. Marathon County would be similar. So it's kind of depending on what each county has had. I know that I had in a couple of, I was in Wood County. We were in the courthouse. Dunn County, we were outside of the courthouse, then we were in the courthouse, and then they moved us out of the courthouse. So, there's no one good model. So that was just the response that we had with in regard to that. A couple of things that basically the item 4B just goes to highlight that extension staff who are state staff, that the University of Wisconsin Division of Extension and the employment practices and all the liabilities and responsibilities, that they'll take care of those. And then those staff that are county staff, so we have 2 county support staff, that then the county is responsible for administrating, taking care of, salaries and fringes and holding the taxes and discipline and promotion and benefits and all of that kind of stuff. So basically it's saying each group is responsible for their own people. So, and then the only other final thing is just that the county representatives, and if you look, there's so many more lines. So some counties, the whole entire, all the committees and all kinds of people sign off on it. Here in Waupaca County, Diane will sign off on it, or she'll say, hey, it's good. Dick is the signature of record, followed by then there is some UW. So that's the only reason sometimes I get questions on how come there's so many lines, so many people need to sign it, and the answer is every county is different as far as how many people and who needs to be transparent and open. But I just wanted to take a few moments, and I know, and I can answer any questions if anybody has, but this is the agreement between Waupaca County and the UW Division of Extension, UW-Madison Division of Extension, and it kind of is a little bit behind the scenes of how the partnership, and it has evolved and changed a little bit, but still the fundamental principles of providing outreach education for the folks here locally, with the funding support and all of the other supports and things from the county are still, those are still the fundamental principles. So does anybody have any questions before I move on to any of the next topics?
Just have a question on this first educator discount. Can you explain that a little more?
Sure.
detail?
So we about 5 years ago, we kind of made a transition into a little bit of a different model. And basically what it was not even a true, but it was roughly a 60-40 split. So if we had a shared educator, and I'm going to use I'll use a number that's actually fairly realistic. If you have an experienced educator, when you take all of their salaries and their fringe benefits and all of the things, it could be as much as say $100,000 total package. You know, someone who's been around for 15, 20 years or something like that. And what we had was a 40-60 split, in which the county would get billed for 60% of I was thinking, but I got that flipped up for 40%, and the state would pick up 60%. Okay, and it would be true, and if it went up, and it would go, and basically there was some restructuring, reorganization. We overall had to reduce the total number of full-time positions across the state, and so instead of having a 40-60 split, there was a per educator fee that was assigned. That's where the $42,300 is. So that is the county flat fee, flat rate, and then the state will share as a shared position. The state will pick up the rest for that. Which there isn't really every position has a different total cost to it. So it's no longer, you can't say, well, it's about this or it's about that, because every position is different. The first educator discount was something that was introduced with the conversion, because this was so much of a change that the state said, hey, if you invest in one extension educator, we will take $10,000 off of your total bill, just because we would like you to transition with us to the new model. And so that has been something that has maintained itself through the year. And well, there have been some small increases to the flat fee. The $10,000 discount has helped it remain palatable, because especially this year, some county budgets are a little tough, or a little tight. So at least at this point, that's the history behind that. There has been discussion about whether we should do whatever and not do it. Some people call it an accounting trick, things like that. And should we just spread that out over and things like that? But that's kind of the history behind that. Is it was a goodwill offering to try and get counties to say, hey, let's move into the new system, or please move into the new system, because at the time there were county committees or county boards that were threatening to say, we are done with extension. This is not, this doesn't match what we feel extension should be. And in the result, or in the end result at the time, there were extension presence in all 72 counties in all 3 of our tribal nations. So it was, I can't say that it was necessarily just because of that discount, but it may have helped in some cases have an extension presence. So. Right. Any other questions? That will be an action item at the next committee meeting or in a month, as far as a recommendation to enter into the agreement. And like I said, that you can either say no, you can say yes, or you can say yes upon passing the budget. And so we can work with that. So moving on, just a couple of other quick updates. We have had some really some good news in that we've had with some of our program approvals. So we are still have program guidance that has some limited numbers, like indoor groups of 10 or smaller, depending on what the space of the facility would be. Outdoor groups, we can have up to 50 in pods of that are spaced without a lot of without interaction. All of the safety, face coverings and hand sanitizer and registration records, so that we can so we can assist in contact tracing, those types of things. A couple of the changes, if we do have an opportunity for adult only programming, we no longer have a multi-layer approval process. The educators, so I'll use Jessica. Jessica says that she's going to get a focus group with her leadership Waupaca County as she starts planning. She can hold a meeting following all of the checklists, and if it needs to be in person. She does not need to send that to me or a institute level administrator for review and approval. She's able to still complete the form submitted, so we know that it happens. But then we're basically saying that adults are not a high-risk vulnerable population as far as defined as like they're different from youth. Youth have a whole different level of criteria or threshold. So that's a change in the process, but not a change in the safety that's involved there. And virtual meetings are still preferred if that is a way that either the educational interaction is able to be handled, or the meeting type will benefit from that, or at least be adequate for that. A slight modification. So when I get to work with Penny on her 4-H things, it's just Penny and I that need to work things through. We don't need a third layer or a third layer of approval at the institute level. We've been doing these since July. We know where the tricky spots are and what we need to work through. Not only do I work with Penny and the educators in Waupaca County, but I've also been working with the educators in Outagamie, Calumet, and Winnebago. So I'm pretty good at knowing. I've gotten pretty good at knowing where are the tricky spots that we have to look out for, and to make sure that we are trying to keep people as safe as possible, so that we can help the volunteers have a safe environment and keep everyone safe. So still limited in size and scope, and I do know that Penny and not necessarily Penny, but the administrators at the 4-H are trying to look at how are we going to be able to have some slightly larger groups meet through the winter. Right now, our larger groups are outdoor programming, knowing that outdoor programming isn't going to be the most palatable in maybe a week, or you know what I mean. It's going to get a little cold. So we have to try to figure that out, and there isn't a solution, but people are actively working and planning and trying to figure out how can we meet the needs of our program participants, but how can we keep people safe at the same time. And we're also looking around, watching the numbers and things like that, and being very aware of that. We also are able to. I work with the group, and a couple weeks ago, we implemented a calendaring system that will allow the educators to have limited office presence. We're a smaller group, but we also are a smaller office, and so There are some times in which it is more effective, or where they can come in and work and make copies and use the office machines and touch base and work with the support staff to help as we move forward. But we also have to keep our office densities, and that is more of a, that's a UW compliance with the safety plan addendum that we have in place. So we just want to try and keep things. So right now, our max number in the office is 4. So we have a calendar a system that we use to make sure that there are no more than 4 people in the office space at one time. And because we're a smaller group, there really is 3 is usually the number, which allows for people to be able to work, keep some spacing. You know, so even like this morning, I needed to put myself on the calendar because I was going to be in the office space for a little bit. So I count 2. So we have to just make sure that we have that. And there's some regular things. Some of our workspaces are maybe there are some natural distractions or some things. So coming in and working for a couple of hours in a quiet space or a different space, or good Wi-Fi within the building. Sometimes you can get a lot more done, or there's certain things that you want to do. So we're not necessarily, so telecommuting for our UW staff is still primary, but we are having some limited presence within our safety guidelines to make sure that there are individuals in the office and utilizing the space that we have. So those are my updates for the month. Any questions?
Doesn't sound like there are any. Are we down to making the next meeting?
Looks like it.
I think we are. And according to what I have written here, it's the 26th of October, Monday. Is that okay with everybody?
And I think we
Okay.
did double check that that's the last Monday. Right, Amy? That's what we double checked that one. I always get confused because I always want to put it on the 4th Monday, but it's actually the last Monday. So every now and then I'm a week off.
It is the last Monday, Chris.
So,
The regular county board meeting is moved to the 27th, so I don't know that the day apart.
okay. And I think are you guys, is that final budget approval?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
There's a motion. We are adjourned. Theoretically, we don't even have to vote on that. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Good day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.